Tonight, though, it's all about 2013 West Catholic. Brett Bakita here to chat with us about that wild ride for the Falcons. Brett, you know, after they dropped games in week 1, 2, and 3, all the state semifinalists, Oak Ridge, Comstock Park, and South Christian, West Catholic was 0-3. They'd eventually be 1-4. I mean, we just don't very often, if ever, see teams start that poorly and win a state championship.
Well, and one thing we know, Jay, and our colleague Dan Roan was the head coach back then, is that they were going to take on all challengers. And they really needed to, because they were preparing always for the Division V playoffs. And they know that when they face smaller schools, not that they weren't going to be as good, that would make them battle tested. Now, saying that, you want to win some of those, certainly. But you look at just those teams that you rattled off. Comstock Park kind of in their heyday, South Christian. I mean, it was a tough front-loaded portion of the schedule before they got into conference play. And as we'll find out when we go to talk to these guys and Coach Roan about this piece, it certainly made him nervous the first 4 weeks.
Well, and the first 3 were non-conference games. They lose the 4, so the Northern game would go 1-4. That snapped a 40-game winning streak in conference play that spanned 3 different leagues. They hadn't lost since the City League in 2006 in an actual league game. But they righted the ship. They got in the playoffs. They go to the state championship game to play Menominee, a team they'd knocked off 3 straight years in the state semifinals. Let's look back at that game at Ford Field in 2013. Of course, they had lost in the state championship game in 2012, bound and determined not to do it this time. Early on, it was actually second quarter of a scoreless game when Travis Russell hits David Banchik. It was 7-0 West Catholic. Of course, 7-7 at the half. Third quarter, Andy Corey, what a player that guy was. Gets the big interception. Menominee was going in. That interception happens inside the 10-yard line. And then the play of the game, really, the fake field goal. Travis Hoving, who was a quarterback in the same grade as Travis Russell, gave it up to be the kicker. Great pass to Bryce Witham, who would eventually go on to the University of Minnesota. That really turned the tide in this game. And Travis Russell took it over from there. 2 passing touchdowns, this rushing touchdown. West Catholic 27-14 knocks off Menominee to win their second state title in 4 years. Really incredible, Brett. I mean, a lot to take away from that game. I mean, Travis Russell's junior year, his second year starting, he was obviously great in that game. Andy Corey, the senior, kind of the glue guy on that team on both sides of the ball. But really, that fake field goal, I mean, that was 7-7, and there was a lot of controversy at the time surrounding was that a legal play.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's going to be fun. I don't want to spoil it when you hear these guys and talk about even how they practiced it and weren't successful, and that it works when it needs to, and the story behind that play. But I think one thing that we've got to touch on, Jay, and you and I were so impressed, remember, when we sat down with him in the preseason, is Travis Russell and what kind of leader he was and how he was just mature beyond his age and years with his conversation and his leadership skills that you could just sense when you sat down with him. And that's why Dan Roan gave him so much confidence after his sophomore year, expanded the playbook when he was a junior. And you could see the leadership because the guys really rallied around him. They had a lot of different parts, but it all started with Travis Russell. His leadership was incredible. And he kind of reminded me of like a Kirk Cousins, if you will, when he was at Michigan State, how people were wondering if he was going to win the starting job. Travis Russell was the guy in just his second year of his high school career.
Well, you don't have a high school team start that poorly and then figure it out without great leadership. You know, and if that comes from a junior quarterback, which I'm sure it did, because as you just stated, Russell's so mature beyond his years, but great seniors on the team like Mitch Stanizak, Andy Corey, great coaching staff as well. Dan Roan had lots of great guys on his staff. So, you know, that it doesn't happen by accident that you struggle out of the gate and then find a way to win a state championship.
I think it's amazing, too, when you look at the history of West Catholic and all the success they were kind of going through at the time. I mean, this was the middle of kind of their run, or maybe even the start of their run. Then they go on. They have the 5 consecutive state championships. If they would have beat Portland that one year, it would have been 6 in a row. That's a program, and that's Dan Roan and his coaching staff first, and then Joe Highland on the back end of it. But the confidence instilled in the program that, hey, you know what? No matter how it happens or whatever goes through in our conference play or the season, we're still knowing that we can control our destiny and we're confident in ourselves. And that's what the guys talk about, is they cleaned up some of the mistakes from those early games. And boy, they won 9 straight all the way to a state championship. What a Cinderella story.